Okay, so AI, right? AI, it's everywhere these days.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it. But are we really understanding what's going on behind the scenes? Like
Mm,
what's actually happening with all this powerful tech?
right.
Well, this week, the EU released some draft rules, and they're aiming to regulate something called general purpose AI models, GPAIs.
Yeah.
And we're talking the big players here like ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Google's models, all the
Ugh.
ones that are kind of, changing everything.
Yeah.
And these regulations, they could actually reshape how AI is developed, like globally.
Yeah.
So we're going to deep dive into that today.
Definitely a big deal. It's really interesting to see how these rules build on the EU's AI Act that went into effect in August.
That's right, just a couple months ago.
Seems like they're really trying to stay ahead of everything, with how fast things are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go any further, can you maybe just give us a quick explainer? Like, what exactly is a GPAI? What makes it different from, say, just the apps on our phones?
Well, imagine like a super brain, one that can process information on a scale that's just like mind-blowing, way beyond even the most powerful computers we have.
Wow.
That's essentially what a GPAI is. It's all about the massive computing power that goes into training them. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but these models have access to and they process a library of information that, like, you couldn't read in a lifetime.
Oh, wow. Okay, so big power, big potential, but
Yeah.
that probably means, big risks too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The EU seems really focused on four key areas: transparency, copyright, risk assessment, and mitigation. Those seem like pretty big concerns.
Yeah, transparency is definitely top of mind for them. They basically want companies to be completely open about their AI models, including, revealing at least some of the data they use to train them, which is a big deal because these models are trained on a ton of information.
So, I mean, that makes sense. The more transparent companies are, the easier it is to understand how these models work and, what kind of biases they might have, right?
Yeah.
But if companies have to, like, reveal their training data, isn't there a chance that could lead to problems with copyright? I mean, a lot of this data is probably protected intellectual property.
You're absolutely right. It's a huge point of contention. The use of copyrighted material in training data is a big concern.
Yeah.
The EU wants to make sure copyright laws are respected, even in the digital world of AI. Like, imagine someone using your book to train an AI model without asking. That
Right.
brings up all sorts of questions about, ownership and fairness.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a great point. And I know a lot of artists and writers are like really worried about that. But it's not just copyright the EU is worried about, right?
Mm.
There's also all the potential risks that come with these powerful models. Like, what if they're used for, cyber attacks
Mhm.
or even to spread misinformation or discriminate against certain groups?
Exactly. The EU isn't just worried, though. They're actually proposing concrete steps. Like, the draft rules include requirements for, serious risk assessments and ways to reduce those risks, kind of like safety protocols for dangerous
Right.
materials.
Makes sense.
You got to know the risks and have a plan to avoid accidents.
So they're not messing around. It's not just a, hey, be careful. It's,
Yeah.
actually laying down the law.
Yeah.
And the penalties for not following the rules, they're pretty serious, like fines up to 35 million or 7% of global profits, which is
Wow.
that's a lot. So they seem pretty serious about enforcing these things.
Definitely. And it's not just about the fines either. The rules actually emphasize that executives can be held responsible personally for any violations.
Hmm.
And there's a big emphasis on oversight by independent experts to make sure everything's balanced.
So it sounds like the EU's really trying to get ahead of this, set some clear guidelines before things maybe get out of hand.
Right.
What are your thoughts on all this, especially thinking about AI development around the world?
It's a bold move, for sure. It'll be interesting to see how it impacts the AI landscape globally. Like, will other countries follow suit with their own regulations, or will this create a sort of divide in how AI is developed in different parts of the world?
Right.
It raises a lot of questions about the future of AI, that's for sure.
It does, and it's a conversation I think we all need to be a part of. So to our listeners out there, what do you think about all this? Do these rules make you feel like AI will be safer? Or do you think they'll stifle innovation? And what does this mean for the future AI, not just in Europe, but everywhere? Especially as AI keeps becoming more integrated into our lives.
Mhm.
Something to think about.